We didn't have to read far to feel what kind of silence this was. Not the kind that comes from grief or even anger. The kind that happens when paperwork has already decided the ending and the people in the room are just catching up. Her name is Elena Whitmore. She's the one who built the core of what her family called a legacy, and what she knew privately was her grandfather's life's work. The way she tells it, the hurt wasn't loud, it was clean. Here's where she begins. The lights in the Menlo Park conference room buzzed like they always did, and that was the part that made me feel strange. Everything looked normal. The glass table, the stacked folders, my mother's neat hands resting on a pen like it belonged to her. My father didn't look at me when he started. "We accepted the offer," he said. "We're selling." Caleb Moore sat 2 seats down, fingers laced, wearing that calm smile he saved for other people's money. I let the words land. I waited for the rush in my chest. It didn't come. My mother leaned forward, soft and certain. "It's time, Elena. Your grandfather wanted this company protected." A man in a gray suit cleared his throat at the end of the table. "For the record, Elena will be transitioning out of day-to-day operations effective immediately." I blinked once. "You're firing me." My father's jaw tightened. "Don't make it sound like that." Caleb's smile twitched. "We can do this clean." That word, clean. Behind my mother, the framed photo of my grandfather sat slightly crooked on the credenza. I stared at it like it might move. We notice it every time, when someone uses the word family like a seal over a decision that was already made. My mother reached for my hand. I didn't pull away. I just didn't give it back either. "If you want to hear the rest, the channel will be here when you're ready." The meeting ended the way these things do. Chairs scraping, folders closing. My mother touched my arm again, lighter this time. "We'll talk at home," she said. "This isn't personal." I nodded because nodding was easier than trusting my voice. That night, I drove past my parents' place and kept going. I ended up at the old workshop instead. The lock still stuck if you didn't lift the handle just right. That hadn't changed. Inside, the air smelled like dust and oil. My grandfather's bench was still there. One drawer didn't close all the way. It never had. I opened it and found his notebook, the one with the cracked spine. He used to tap the page with his knuckle when he was thinking. "Don't rush clean answers," he'd say. "They hide the mess." I sat on the stool and read the same paragraph twice without absorbing it. We hear it sometimes, that pause when someone returns to a place that remembers them better than people do. My phone buzzed, a message from Caleb. "Proud of how today went," it read. "This is the grown-up version." I locked the phone and slid the notebook back into the drawer, careful to leave it the way he would have wanted. The changes didn't announce themselves. They showed up the way dust does. An invite disappeared from my calendar. A weekly check-in moved to TBD and never came back. I walked into a meeting late one afternoon and felt it before anyone spoke. The room went still. Not hostile, just adjusted. Richard didn't look up from his tablet. "We've got it covered today." "Covered how?" I asked, keeping my voice even. Margaret smiled without turning. "You've been carrying a lot. Take the space." Caleb leaned back in his chair. "Trust the process, Elena." I did what they seemed to want. I nodded. I stepped out. The door clicked softer than I expected. 2 days later, my phone buzzed during a coffee run. A banker I barely knew had texted. "Congrats on the deal," the message read. 8 figures is no small thing. I stared at the screen until the barista cleared her throat and slid the cup toward me. Back at the office, my badge worked. My access didn't. A red banner blinked. Temporary restriction. Temporary is a word people use when they don't want to say permanent yet. We tend to notice this part, the moment when rooms stop opening and no one explains why. That night, Richard called. "Don't read into things," he said. "This is just delegation." "Okay," I told him, and meant something else entirely. The email came in sideways, the way mistakes usually do. It wasn't sent to me. It wasn't meant for me. Someone forwarded the wrong chain, probably rushing between meetings. I recognized the tone before I read the names. Polite, confident, settled. Subject, transition and integration plan. I scrolled once, then again. My name appeared twice, both times under a heading that said, Exit Roles. I closed the laptop, opened it again. Read slower, Richard had replied first. We'll handle the founder conversation after closing. Margaret followed. She'll understand. She always does. Caleb added a thumbs up emoji. Clean break, less emotion. My throat tightened. Not enough to hurt, just enough to notice. I walked down the hall and stopped outside the conference room. Voices carried through the glass. We should move the announcement up, someone said. Caleb's laugh cut in. She won't fight this. She's too tied to the past. I stepped back before they saw me. We hear this moment often, the point where certainty replaces doubt, and the silence around a person becomes deliberate. At home, I poured a glass of water and forgot to drink it. The email sat open on my phone. I archived it instead of deleting it. Deleting felt like denial. My grandfather's notebook came off the shelf. I hadn't planned that part. My hands knew where to go. Never rush clean answers, he used to say. I sat at the kitchen table, the phone face down, the notebook open, and stayed there until the feeling passed enough for me to think. I went back to the originals the next morning. Not the neat folders my parents liked, the early drafts, the ones with comments in the margins and dates that didn't line up cleanly. My laptop hummed while I searched. File names from years ago blinked back at me. Version 3, final. Actually, final. I called Mark before I let myself draw conclusions. Can you look at something for me? I asked. Quietly, there was a pause on the line. Are we talking curiosity or trouble? Preparation. All right, he said. Send it. While the files uploaded, I poured coffee and forgot the cream. Took a sip anyway. Didn't matter. Mark called back faster than I expected. Elena, he said, careful now. You never assigned the core patents. I licensed them. Yes, exclusively, with conditions. Change of control. And revocation, he added. It's clean. It's there. I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. My grandfather's handwriting came back to me, the way he underlined words instead of bolding them. They sold it, I said. They don't own it. No, Mark agreed. They assumed they did. We notice this shift, the moment someone stops feeling cornered and starts feeling oriented. I thanked him and ended the call. My phone buzzed again. A photo from Caleb this time. Champagne flutes. A caption about new chapters. I tapped the heart and set the phone face down. Then I opened a new document and started listing dates, conversations, access changes, who said what and when. Not to accuse, to prepare. I didn't rush anything. That was the hardest part. Mark sent over a draft notice that afternoon. Dry language, polite, almost boring. This triggers the audit rights, he told me over the phone. Nothing aggressive yet. Good, I said. I don't want noise. At work, I kept my head down, answered what I was asked, nothing extra. Margaret passed my desk once and paused. You're being very calm, she said. I appreciate that. I smiled. I'm trying to make this easy. Her shoulders relaxed. She walked away lighter than she'd arrived. That night, Caleb called. The kind of call meant to sound friendly. Drinks soon? He offered. Feels like a win worth celebrating. After things settle, I replied. Let the funds clear. A beat. Smart. We hear that tone sometimes, the relief that comes from believing the danger is past. I hung up and set the phone beside my notebook. Escrow timelines were already highlighted, dates circled, nothing dramatic, just waiting for the moment when patience became leverage. I slept better than I expected. The filing went in before sunrise. Mark called while the kettle was still warming. It's live, he said. The revocation triggered the moment control shifted. I watched steam gather on the window. What happens now? Now they notice. They noticed by noon. Richard's name lit up my phone first. I let it ring. Margaret followed, then Caleb. Messages stacked without listening to themselves. At the office, the air changed. People whispered near the printers. Someone from operations knocked once and stepped inside. "Our system's just locked," she said, breathless. "We were told to pause everything tied to the patents." "Okay," I told her. "Payroll's protected. Tell everyone to wait for instructions." She nodded and left, already typing. We hear this shift. The moment momentum trips over paperwork and everyone looks around for permission to move. Caleb finally caught me in the hallway. His smile had slipped. "There's been a misunderstanding," he said. "The buyer's getting nervous." "I know. This isn't how partners handle things." I picked up my bag. We stopped being partners when my access disappeared. Richard's voice came through on speaker a minute later, tight and low. "Get back here. We need to talk." "I'm on my way," I said, and meant it in a way he didn't expect. The conference room looked the same. Same glass table, same chairs pulled a little too close together. Someone had straightened the photo of my grandfather on the credenza. I noticed that right away. Richard stood when I walked in. He didn't offer a hug. "Sit," he said. "We need to fix this." Margaret's voice came softer. "Elena, this has gone too far." Caleb stayed near the window, phone in hand, like he might need an exit. Mark's colleague slid a folder across the table. "The injunction is active. Operations relying on the licensed patents are frozen." Richard's face drained. "That's not possible. We sold everything." I opened the folder and pushed it back toward him, turning it so he could read. "You sold the company. You didn't own the patents." Margaret flipped through the pages too fast. Then slower. "You can't do this," she said. "We're your parents." "I know," I said. "That's why I waited." We notice how rooms change when authority evaporates. Voices drop. People stop interrupting. Caleb laughed once, sharp and misplaced. "This is a bluff." I looked at him. "Page 9, subsection C. Read it." Silence settled, heavy but controlled. Richard rubbed his forehead. "What do you want?" I stood and picked up my bag. "Compliance. We'll talk about everything else after." The fallout took time. Quiet time. Emails from attorneys. Notices that read, "Careful and restrained." People asking what to do next and waiting when I told them to pause. I moved my things out of the old office one box at a time. Nobody rushed me. Payroll went through. Benefits stayed intact. That mattered more to me than winning an argument ever could. The buyback closed without ceremony. No champagne. Just signatures and a final confirmation call. The number was smaller than anyone would have believed a month earlier. I didn't comment on that. I didn't need to. We announced the new structure the following week. A leaner board, clear control, a long-term plan that included a new research center in Austin. When I told the team, a few people smiled like they were relieved to recognize the company again. Richard called once after everything settled. "I should have protected what your grandfather built," he said. His voice sounded thinner than I remembered. I leaned against the counter and listened to the hum of the refrigerator. "I am," I told him. "That's the difference." He didn't argue. Margaret didn't call. In the new office, Henry Whitmore's notebook sits in a glass case near my desk. The pages are open to a section with his handwriting in the margins. Nothing dramatic, just notes about care, about patience, about not confusing speed with progress. I still read it on hard days. What changed wasn't my parents or the company. It was how I stood inside it. Elena Whitmore stopped asking to be included and started deciding what stayed. If you've been listening this far, you already know why stories like this linger. We're here, quietly, when you want to sit with that feeling a little longer.